everybody to our third class in Module C of English for Logistics. And coming to us directly from Curitiba City, our teacher Mauricio.
Thank you so much, Simon. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you. So let's get right into the material that we have to cover. I will share my screen and we will jump right into it. Okay, just let me know. Can you see it? Yeah? All right. So, as usual, we begin our class reviewing some of the keywords and terms that we discussed in our previous class. And today's, Simon, if you please, could you read it to us, the
Sure.
keywords from class number 2?
Let's see if the keywords still sound familiar to you guys. Logistics 4.0, Transportation 4.0, Intermodal Transportation, Multimodal Transportation, Transit Time, Customer Requirements, Risk Management, Risk Transfer, Logistics Infrastructure, Courier Service, Route Planning or Route Planning, Booking Services, Customs Clearance, Advisory Services.
Thank you so much, Simon. And here, just a couple of hints for you, tips, like always pay attention between intermodal and multimodal, okay? The difference between them is basically just that the intermodal transportation, you always give the whole business to one company to manage the transferring of the cargo throughout the whole process, and multimodal, it's pretty much the same, but you as the owner or the importer, you have to hire individually each one of them to handle your importation. Transit time is something that we're gonna look today, and whatever, anything else you have questions, just let me know, okay? So let's just review, give this big picture once again of the international logistics process. There are no secrets here. Pretty much we cover all these areas in our previous classes and other modules, but today we are going to pay attention into customs processes, okay? Because as you can see in this picture, customs, they happen at least twice, because you have to clear export and you have to clear an import process. And in our international trade module, we've seen this in with some details. But today, we would like to present it to you with a little bit deeper details on how we expect and how we handle customs authorities, how we handle this operations, because customs depends on each country, depends on what moment in history you're talking about. And we will see further on in the class today how they affect the international logistics process, and we will see in detail later on. Okay, so let's move let's keep this picture in mind, and we will jump right into customs authorities. Okay, so customs authorities, as we know, they are part of the logistics process. And despite of what we know about them, that, you know, they create a lot of problems and difficulties, but they did have an important role in the country, in the common trade, in the foreign trade of each country. So customs are governmental agencies, right, or official agencies that are responsible for regulating and facilitating international trade at national borders. So here are some of the roles that it's good for us to take a look at it. So obviously the first one is revenue collection, okay? Because you have to pay import taxes, you have all the regulations that are set by the government, and these and this revenue, it's important because a lot of the country, some countries depend a lot on this customs revenue collection, and we will see differences in customs in different areas, and we will see how much they are dependable on revenue collection. Also, trade facilitation, okay? So when we think about, okay, facilitating, are they facilitating anything? Well, they are for the government authorities, right? They are the ones that are keeping an eye, not only on the products that are being imported and exported, but they have deeper relations with the security, border security, compliance and enforcement, because, for example, there are rules and laws in the country, and these laws must be enforced in every product that we import. See, we import car parts, we import computers, but we import also food products, medicine. So all these compliance and laws, they have, this is the point where they enforce them in the country, okay? So also border security. Sometimes we think, well, you know, customs authorities, they are in the airport, they are in the port, and what do they do with border security? Well, because we will also look in the class today that we have borders that are the countries are together, and there are a lot of situations like we have here in Brazil, for example, Foz do Iguaçu, okay? Foz do Iguaçu is a border where the security is very tight, and this is also one of the roles of customs authorities. Obviously, economic protection, and I think you've heard of protectionism, and we will see a little bit further in the class how this affects international trade. Data collection, obviously, because you know, customs authorities nowadays, they have systems and they have all computerized processes, automations as well, as we've seen in other areas of logistics. And also they collect this data because they can match together with Receita Federal, right? And this is also very important control to make sure that these companies are importing, and the money that is being handled in these operations are also, they have a good eye on it. And once again, facilitation on international agreements. We've seen in our foreign trade class how much the common trade agreements affect policies on each countries. And these authorities operates, like I said, in ports, airports, roads, and border crossings, conducting inspections, collecting taxes and duties, and preventing, once again, illegal activities such as smuggling and trafficking, okay? Smuggling is also related to drugs and also even people, right? We've seen in some borders have this problem, which regards trafficking people as well, not only drugs. Okay, so don't be mad at customs. Sometimes they're doing their business and we have to comply with it. And so now let's take a look at the customs clearance process. Obviously, each country has its own customs clearance process, but they're pretty much standardized as as a flux, okay? They may vary by documents or informations, but we will see here that customs clearance process involves several steps to ensure that imported goods comply with the regulations and requirements of the importing country. The customs clearance process is a crucial component of international trade for several reasons. Its importance can be outlined as follows. So we've seen previously the role of the freight forwarder and they are, and also customs agents, right? The brokers that we hire to handle the paperwork and also the communication with customs authorities. So customs they require pre-arrival procedures. Sometimes you have to present the documents in a specific time of the process of the importation process that the goods haven't arrived yet. So they are also analyzing this documentation previous to the arrival of the goods. Also, they act in the arrival of the goods, because when we are talking about a customs area in airports and ports and borders, these areas are national security areas, and they have to comply with the country law. So these goods, they also have to be inspected whenever they are unloaded from the boats and the vessels and the trucks as well. Obviously, customs declarations, okay, informations that you have to present specifically regarding the products that you are importing or exporting. Obviously, with the experience I have in this with customs, and I work with them at least for 6 years, customs, they tend to facilitate exports, okay? But the export process is faster, but obviously the importation process requires more information, okay? Also, customs are responsible for making sure that the duties and the taxes are being paid. So all their process, sometimes you have to pay taxes not for customs, you have to pay them for Ministério da Agricultura, sometimes you have to pay for Anvisa, right? And customs are agents, customs, they make sure that all these taxes and duties are paid. Obviously, they release the goods. And after that, they also conduct special audits and informations, such as post-clearance in Metro. Very good, Bruna, very good. They are regulating agencies, right? Post-clearance audits to make sure that all the documents, because I don't know if you're aware that we have the green light, we have the yellow, we have the red, and even though your goods can get a green light, all the documents and all the paperwork, they must be submitted. So they also check processes that they don't specifically have to go through customs whenever they arrive. So audits, okay? Special procedures, they work together with the police, with the border patrol. There are a lot of operations happening in these areas. So customs are also they are asked to participate in many of these initiatives from the police border patrol. and customs bonds, okay? Customs bonds are documents that are negotiated with, we call surely, which is surely is a company or a person that guarantees that these taxes and all these duties are being paid. So customs bonds, depending on the process, they play an important role in the clearance as well. Okay, so obviously it's vital for maintaining the legal and orderly flow of goods across borders, and to ensure compliance with international and domestic laws. We've seen in the common trade agreements are not only focused on what the benefits that you can have importing products from countries participating on those agreements, but they also specify some of procedures that you cannot make. For example, if you are participating in the Mercosul, for example, you have to impose higher barriers for the same products that you import from China. Okay, because the country is not importing anything. The companies within the Brazil are importing, so they have to create this balance of economic balance. Okay, and obviously protects national interests because, like I said, we are importing food and medical equipments and medicine, so they make sure that these goods are also complying with the local law. Okay, so the process. This is the process of the clearance process, and we also have. I'm bringing to you the main errors that we find that customs usually they pay attention to it, and we as customers, as importers and exporters, we have to pay attention. And that's why we always say to hire a good freight forwarder, or if you're dealing with a customs agent that will do that for you, just make sure that all this information is in compliance with their procedures. So what are the most common errors that we find in the clearance process? Okay, first of all, incomplete or incorrect documentation. Okay, so this is very usual, and they pay a lot of attention into that. Incorrect tariff classification, because whenever you are importing a product, you are already presenting customs the tariffs that you are willing to pay, and they will check on that, and they will make sure that you make no mistakes. And in this area, we are looking at a wide range, a wide variety of situations that companies, they try to, they make some risk movements, especially with tariff classification, that they try, right? But depending on what they're misunderstanding, let's use this term, they can be fined with penalties that are very very high that they have to pay. Sometimes they can even be they're not even allowed to their import license can be revoked, right? Okay, another topic that we call is valuation errors. And when we talk about valuation, we're talking about the price of the products that you are saying that you paid for these goods. Okay, that the cost of these products that you put in the BL, that you put in the importation declaration. So they keep an eye on that, because for example, if you negotiate a product that you got a very good negotiation with the seller, okay, and you're just like so happy that you got like a 50% discount on the products that you're importing, and obviously you are going to declare the price that you pay for them, right? But whenever they get to the customs, they look at it and they say, well, this is too cheap. So there are some legal procedures like dumping that you have to pay attention, and you can be fined with dumping regulations, just because you made a very good deal with with the seller. So just pay attention to that, okay? I'm not saying that you're gonna make different money. You're gonna put the amount that you pay for these products differently that you actually paid, but you just have to be careful that whenever these documents arrive, customs they can say, okay, well, you pay $50 for this computer, but on average in our country, the same computer goes for about $100. So we are gonna tax you. We're gonna tax you based on the market price of this product, okay? Once again, improper use of free trade agreements that we discussed previously. Non-compliance with import and export restrictions. For example, there are some products that are forbidden. You cannot import them, even though they might be part of a bigger product. So just be careful with that, okay? No, this happens, these rules, they are spread all over the world. And we will see further on how countries use these regulations and tariffs to keep that balance happening with the products that they are importing and the products that they're exporting, okay? So these rules, these laws are worldwide, okay? Failure to obtain necessary license or permits, okay? For example, a certificate of origin is very common that sometimes, for example, you bought, it happened with me one time. I was working at it was a company that we import some medical products and kits for testing, DNA testing. And we started with a new supplier, and we negotiated, everything was great, and we paid him. And whenever we asked him to issue the certificate of origin, they said, "Oh, we forgot to tell you, for us to issue the documents for the certificate of origin, it will cost you another $50,000." And the products, they were something around like $300,000, and they charged us, and we couldn't do anything, because if we didn't have the certificate of origin, the products would just stay with customs, and we could get fined as well. Okay, inadequate record keeping. Okay, if you don't keep records of all your importations and everything in those audits, they can fine, they can give you penalties. Misunderstanding of preferential duty programs. Once again, like I said, the risks that some importers they take in order to save some money, right? So maybe Brazil and China, they have a common agreement regarding some kinds of commodity codes, right? NCMs. So these companies, they try to um, um, put the commodity code for those products, and then they see if customs are aware of that. And I'll tell you, they are aware. Okay, they have a lot of communications with other countries, and with the common trade agreements as that we've seen. It's also a very important aspect, that they share informations. Okay. Um, and non-compliance with customs procedures, okay, overall. So to avoid these errors, you should invest in proper training. I know that if you work directly with importation, you have to be always aware of the new taxation, the new agreements, the new tariffs, because it's your responsibility as the importer, okay? So stay updated on regulatory changes and requirements before import and export, okay? All right, so we've talked a lot with about in the international trade and transportation. We talked a lot about ports and airports, but we didn't talk about the borders, right? The borders, the dry ports. These dry ports, they are terminals or facilities that are situated away from the traditional seaports and airports, where cargo is temporarily stored, consolidated, or disconsolidated before being transported to its final destination. Because imagine if you only have the ports and airports as a inbound for importation. Imagine, for example, small countries like Portugal or Taiwan, if they depend only on their primary facilities, such as airports and ports, it will be very busy and very crowded, and so these countries, they decided to create these dry ports, where basically these facilities, they are considered as a customs area, just like international area, where these products, even though they are already inside of the country, they're not nationalized. Okay, so they have strict controls of these especially trucks, right? Because they are, for example, I think in Maringá we have a dry port, and for example, importers in the Maringá area, they can present their documentation to the customs in Maringá dry ports, and not in Foz do Iguaçu, for example, where typically these, or even from Paranaguá, which is our harbor here, they can present their documents in Maringá, because Maringá is closer to their factory, is closer to their plant, and so it's more like an advantage for these customers, that they will run out from the airports and ports, and they will conduct all the importation process already in the country. Okay, so and also, because these areas are controlled by customs, you can also manipulate products easier than when you are in the airport or when you're in a harbor, because you have more space, and because they already prepared for that. For example, let's say alcoholic beverages or cigarettes, for example, products that are controlled by Anvisa. these products, for example, when you, let's say you buy a load of whiskey bottles from United States, okay? These bottles, they whenever they arrive at the dry port or the harbor, they need to comply with local regulations. So have you ever seen that when you open like a bottle of import beverages, they have a seal on the top? It's pretty much like the seal that they put in cigarettes as well. This is a seal that it complies with importation procedures. And you have to put these seals, you have to manipulate these products before they get nationalized, because customs authorities, they will make sure that you put all the seal, all the bottles are sealed with this information. They look at the labels to make sure that the labels have some form of Portuguese information. So typically dry ports are also used for this kind of manipulation of products. And it's also cheaper than to do that in airports or harbors, because once again, space is very limited and they usually charge higher prices for that. Okay, so once again, to enhance logistics efficiency, especially in regions or areas far from major ports, facilitating smoother transfer of goods between different modes of transportation. For example, like if you're in Santos or Paranaguá, I don't know if you've been into these areas, but they are loaded with trucks. And these trucks are everywhere in the city because of the containers, because of the products. So dry ports also help to transfer all these movement of trucks to a different area. Also, we have dry ports for trains as well. Okay, because trains are more limited than trucks, right? Because trains, they have to go to the railways and they're much less flexible on that. Okay, so here are some benefits of these dry ports. Once again, improve connectivity, facilitation on international intermodal transportation, cost efficiency, as we said, customs clearance. Obviously, customs in dry ports, you have two sides of that, because since you don't have this urge to clear the area as fast as you can, like you have in airports specifically. Customs in dry ports, they have a different way of different procedures, because they have more time, they can spread out the products. So this is good. The good side of it is that they flow much easier and better as well. Obviously, economic growth, because we will see a little bit further the areas that these dry ports are localized, because they can bring a lot of companies in the surrounding areas, that they don't have to be closer to these other areas like airports and ports. Reduction of environmental impact, like we said, with all the trucks in the area and all the pollution. Risk mitigation, because sometimes customs, for example, if a truck or a product arrives in a area, for example, they arrived in Foz do Iguaçu, okay? There's this big truck and they are supposed to clear customs at the dry port in Foz do Iguaçu, but for some reason they are busy, they have many products, or they have the different seasons, especially with products that Brazil exports as well, right? Because it's the same area. So they can divert that truck from Foz do Iguaçu, for example, to Maringá, or even to Curitiba, and they control this transit time through a system that gives you a specific time that the truck needs to go from Foz do Iguaçu to Curitiba. And if something happens, it's not a satellite link, okay? But it's just basically that you have some specific amount of hours to reach the dry port in Curitiba, and if you don't, then police comes after you, and there's a big thing. So they also act in this area as well. And once again, support for trade facilitation initiatives. Dry ports are much more driven by the economic situation of the area. So states can also ask permission to customs to install these terminals inside of the country. Okay. And I'm bringing to you some dry ports around the world. So this is the border between United States and Mexico. Even though the border is very large, you can cross as a citizen. For example, if you are in your car, you can cross in many areas here in this map. If you're driving your car, I want to go to the United States, and I have many roads that I can cross. But with cargo, they tend to make a funnel. And so, for example, in Texas, you probably have 2 or 3 dry ports. New Mexico, I think you have 1. Arizona, 2. And California, I think you have 2 or 3. But this is also a way to get the freight trade not mixed with passengers, because customs, they also have an important role inspecting cars and passengers and people and visa and all that. Okay, so this is a overview of dry ports in the southern part of the United States. And our special guest in the next class, he's very familiar with this area as well. And this is a picture of dry ports in Brazil. So this is the area where they are kind of like they are responsible for, and the economic area that they are located. And you can ask me, but you know, Manaus, for example, Manaus, you have airports, you have ports, but also you have a dry port, because with all these facilitations that we covered, they also, for example, in the dry ports here in the border with Colombia, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay. So it's a very important area. I've worked in dry ports in the southern part of Brazil, like Uruguaiana, Uruguaiana with Argentina and Uruguay, Santana do Livramento with Uruguay and Jaguarão, Foz do Iguaçu. And this is a picture of Uruguaiana. And for example, you know how many trucks we have? It's a big parking lot for trucks, right? And we actually have 580 truck spaces, okay? 580. But we could fit about 800 trucks in this area simultaneously. Obviously, as we can see here, we use the corridors, the areas between the patios, the trucks with, usually we put exportation processes because they run faster. And then we could fit more trucks in this area because it was good for the country and it was good for the company that I work for, right? And you can see here, there is a small line of trucks here, but if we are not doing our job correctly and the trucks are not moving, if this line of trucks get in this is the main road, right? If these trucks will get into the main road, we will get a fine. So we were always taking a look at it. And this area here, this is the area where the trucks are, the goods are inspected. For example, you come here with an import process, and here the customs are conducting their documentations, and they say, hey, I want to look at this pallet in this truck. So we had to call this truck. We asked them to move here. We unloaded everything out of the way. So we called the customs authorities, and they will look in the products, because sometimes questions may arise. Sometimes they will need some form of identification of products to clear that process. Also, we have an area here for hazardous materials. And this is a very complicated issue, because as we can see here, the trucks are all together. So we had to pay attention to make sure that you don't have products in these. They're all hazardous materials, but we have to make sure that they don't have any conflicts within them that could, for some reason, create a big accident, okay? What's the average time for a truck, for example, to clear customs at the dry port? For example, the average in the areas that I worked, for example, you will take 3 days to clear importation and about 2 hours to clear exportation process. Okay, so but also depends on all the things that we cover so far in this class, that all the products, if documentation is okay, everything is fine, it will take about 3 days. And the truck drivers will stay here. We had areas for them to sleep, and bathrooms, and it was like a big city. An exportation process, like I said, it's faster, and also it's becoming more common in Brazil. In the other countries, this happens a long time ago, but for example, in dry ports in Brazil, especially the ones that are closer to the borders, they have agreements with these countries, and they have custom authorities of, for example, Argentina in the same building. So it was just a hole in the wall. Whenever you clear exportation process from Brazil, customs authorities will just handle the paperwork to the Argentinian authorities, and they will then proceed with their part of the whole process. Okay, it's different than when you're bringing from airplane or ship, right? Where the exportation process happens right days before the products arrive. In this situation, they happen together. Okay, so this is the scenario for dry ports in Brazil and South America. And this is also a picture of, it's a map of dry ports in Europe, okay? And imagine, even though we have now the European Union, also that facilitate a lot the processes of importation, exportation, they have a lot of these dry ports throughout the continent to help the foreign trade. Okay, so we covered dry ports, and now let's get deeper into duties, taxes, and barriers. Okay, because duties, taxes, and barriers, they are not 100% related with customs. They are related with the economic policy of each country as well. Okay, kind of like the same thing that happens with the common trade agreements. We will see here that taxes, duties, and barriers, they are also very, they play a major role in the international transportation and commerce. So they are all financial or regulatory measures imposed by governments, not by customs. Customs reinforce them, okay? But they serve different purposes and are applied in different contexts, okay? So for you that you're taking this course, it's very important that you know the difference, especially in English, of the difference between taxes, duties, and tariffs, okay? So taxes are mandatory financial charges imposed by governments on individual businesses and other entities to fund public expenditure and services as well, okay? Duties are taxes imposed on goods that are imported and sometimes exported into the country. They are a subset of tariffs, but can also include other types of charges related to goods. Okay, for example, for some reason that you have products that are developing, products that are getting newer and newer all the time, and sometimes these duties they change. Each country, for example, in Brazil, they have a list of products that they control very close on how much the country is importing or exporting, and they tend to regulate these duties and tariffs once again to create a economic balance, okay, between the products that are manufactured within the country and the products, the same products, or pretty much their version, the imported version of these products. So they create this balance of taxes and duties. And tariffs, okay? Tariffs are a type of duty or tax imposed on imported goods aimed at controlling the trade flow, once again, by making imported goods more expensive compared to domestic products. And you probably know China is pretty much like the country that affect tariffs throughout the world because they have very cheap labor, and cheap labor affects the final price of these products. So nowadays, now it's more common. China is more like aware of this situation. So, but depending on products, that specific products, for example, I don't know if you're following the news, but the car manufacturers in Brazil are pressuring the government to raise tariffs on Chinese vehicles because they are scared or they are afraid that the Chinese automobiles are getting here cheaper than the price that they are advertising, making these products national. So there's a lot of pressure. For example, these car manufacturers are threatening the government to shut the doors and let people go home for days and not get paid. So that creates a unbalanced flow in the government. So the government is pressured to make agreements with China, but the government is also pressured by the local companies to not create this unbalanced situation. Okay, so taxes are financial charges related to individuals, usually people that lived in a country that are citizens of that country. Duties are pretty much 100% related to import taxes or foreign trade taxes, which is pretty much like a fee, but tariffs are then imposed by governments, okay? And tariffs, and then we have barriers, okay? Barriers are pretty much the opposite of a common trade agreement, because trade barriers are government-imposed restrictions on the free exchange of goods and services between countries. That can be either tariff-based or non-tariff-based. For example, United States and Cuba, whenever they had their political situation happen in the 60s, they imposed barriers in Cuba, especially Cuban cigars, and they cannot companies in the United States cannot import Cuban cigars. It happens also between Venezuela and United States, and a lot of countries regarding now with the war in Ukraine. A lot of countries are pressuring, imposing barriers to Russian products, even exportations to and importation of Russian products. So there are the two different types of barriers, okay? We have the tariff barrier, include duties and tariffs imposed on imported goods to make them more expensive, okay? So they say, okay, the percentage of the tariff that we paid for cell phones in China, okay? Let's say that usually they are 50%. The government can raise to 100% from one day to another. It's depends on, it's like I said, it's a political decision, okay? Sometimes you can create barriers depending on the quality of the products, especially with food. Whenever we had the mad cow disease, I don't know if you remember, but the mad cow disease, a lot of countries, especially in the Middle East, stop importing food, animal products from Brazil. So these barriers can start, and they can be taken out depending on the political situation. And the other type of barriers is the non-tariff barriers. Then you have specific names here that it's important for you to just to keep them in mind, okay? So quotas, okay? Quotas are limits on the quantity of a specific good that can be imported or exported, okay? So that happens with food or with medicine as well. So the government say, okay, we can only import this specific amount of this medicine. Everything else needs to be consumed with local and national products. Okay, another type of non-tariff barriers are licenses. Okay, so out of the sudden, they can create a license that you need to apply like 30 days before shipping. And that creates a lot of barriers as well. Standards, for example, regulations on product safety, health, or technical specifications that imported goods must meet. That happens recently with the lithium batteries, okay? Lithium batteries that you have in computers and cell phones and all that. So this is also a non-tariff barrier. And subsidies, government financial support to domestic industries to make their products cheaper and more competitive, okay? So they're not 100% related to products that you're bringing to your country, but countries, for example, they can take some kinds of taxes, IPI, for example, which is a very common tax that government uses to control this balance. Okay, I'm not gonna upset the Chinese automobile partners by raising barriers or tariffs, but I can create a scenario within the country that these products, the local products are more competitive. Okay, and embargoes. Okay, so once again, like I said, embargoes are complete bans on trade with specific countries or of specific goods. Okay, quotas limit the quantity. Licenses means the more requirements to permit import or export. Standards are quality and safety regulations. Subsidies are just government funding and help for the local industry, and embargoes are just forbidden products. Okay, so now let's take a look at characteristics of customs around the world. Okay, like we've seen in this course, whenever we're establishing trade with different countries, they have their local regulations, they have their local procedures, and customs also have their own procedures around the world. They have these characteristics and operations nuances influenced by their national regulations, trade policies, and technology. For example, here in Brazil, we have Operação Padrão, right? Which is very common and creates a big problem. But anyway, let's take a look at United States, okay? The customs in United States are called United States Customs and Border Protection. What are some characteristics of the customs in the United States? They have advanced electronic systems. For example, when I was working in the United States, you can clear exportations before the truck even leave your factory, because you can submit if you have a good history of making these procedures good. They can facilitate, once again, through advanced electronic systems. Also, they have high security measures, as we know. And like I said, some trade facilitation with other countries and some documents that they can share as well. European Union, okay? So European Union, they have various national customs authorities, but with the European market, they are pretty much connected. And so the harmonized regulations, which means the classification of products, they're standardized. So for example, in Brazil, we have NCM. In the United States, we have commodity code. In Europe, we have harmonized code. So in Europe, they have this situation where codes are much easier to be standardized. Once again, a single market. Sometimes you don't even have to stop to cross borders between countries. And once again, customs union. Okay, they are very united and they keep the security through the whole European Union connected. Now, China, okay? China, the name of the customs in China is General Administration of Customs. And China, some characteristics, they have strict import controls, obviously, because they're exporters, right? So to import something in China, also depending on the country, we know that they have some kind of like socialist regime, right? And for example, in China, they have a lot of limitations on what you can import. Also, they have advanced technology and tariff and trade policies, especially with importation and exportation in China it's much easier, right? Also, Brazil, also we have the Receita Federal do Brasil, that's the name. And what are some of the characteristics? Not so good, right? We have high tariffs and taxes, and that usually are not directed to the importation and the free trade processes. Usually, most of these countries they use most of this most of the money that they get from the tariffs and duties and taxes to invest in the infrastructure of the foreign trade in that country. In Brazil is not such like that, but it's a characteristic. Also, we have many manual processes, and I've been working with customs since 2001. And I remember when I started working, everything was on paper. And I mean, poor truck drivers, sometimes they had to go through like rain or some reason, the original documents, they get wet, and that was a big mess. So nowadays we have Syscomex, we have different modules of Syscomex, which is the system that Receita Federal uses in Brazil. And it's much more fluent than it was like 20 years ago. And in Brazil, they also have this customs valuation, the characteristics that I told you that you have to be very aware that customs just pretty much, they say, if you pay $50 for this product, I'm gonna charge you tax amount as if you had paid $100. And last one, Russia, the Federal Customs Service. They have complex regulations as well. They have high import duties. And also they focus on technology, mainly because technology helps to control better. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of customs around the world. Obviously, there are many other countries like Australia, like in Europe, like in Africa. And as usual, I bring you this map of tariffs around the world, where you can see the percentage of the tariffs or these products that are related with the country. So you can see here in Canada, you have 0.8%, United States 1.6%, and then as we move forward to the less developed countries, the ones that are, like I said, dependable, they depend a lot on this investment, this money. So Mexico 4.4%, Brazil 8%. I mean, come on. It's unheard of. That's why it's so difficult for countries to create a lot of trade with Brazil, import at least. Gabon, I think that's how we pronounce, which is Africa, a country, 16.9. I'm not sure about their political regime there, so I'm not going to say anything. India 6.3, China 3.5, and Russia 3.4. Okay, so this, everything below like 5, it's okay, 4.7. All right, so now just for you to know, this information here is for you to read for our next class, okay? International Logistics Challenges in the United States and the European Union, which will be the topic that we will be discussing with Ivan or Ivan in the next class. Here, he's not going to participate throughout the whole class, but we will have time to ask him questions and to get to know a little bit of what's the reality of international logistics, both in the United States, that's where he lives, and the European Union, that's where he's from. He's from Belarusia, okay? So keep in mind that this information will be good for you to create questions for him in the next class. Okay, so these are information on the actual reality of the international transportation in these countries or in these regions. Okay, good for you to know. All right, so we reach to the point of the keywords from class number 3. Simon, please, would you share with us the keywords from today's class?
Sure, let's go. Customs authorities, governmental agencies, border security, customs clearance process, international and domestic laws, legal issues, dry ports terminals, duties and taxes, tariffs and barriers, market demands, capacity constraints, infrastructure issues, labor shortages, and economic fluctuations.
Thank you so much, Simon. All right, with no further ado, let's get into our in-class practice today, where we bring it to you a dialogue with a situation that we encounter on a daily basis with customs authorities. So this is a dialogue between a custom authority and a customs agent. Customs, always in the plural, customs authority, customs agent. And Laura, you could be the customs authority, and Bruna, you be customs agent. Please share with us.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. I've reviewed the documentation for the shipment from ABC Importers, and I'm concerned about several discrepancies.
Good morning, Ms. Thompson. What specific issues have you identified?
Firstly, the commercial invoice lacks detailed descriptions of the goods. It's essential that we have accurate information to properly classify the items for duties and taxes.
I understand. We will revise the invoice immediately to include comprehensive descriptions and specifications for each item. Is there anything else?
Yes, there's also an inconsistency between the declared value and the supporting documents. It's crucial that we have a clear and accurate valuation to determine the correct duty rates.
I'll verify the declared value with our client and provide the necessary supporting documentation to ensure compliance.
Furthermore, I noticed that the packing list does not match the contents of the shipment as inspected. This discrepancy poses a risk. Discrepancy. This discrepancy poses a risk for incorrect customs declarations.
I apologize for the oversight. We will update the packing list to reflect the actual contents and ensure it aligns with the shipment details.
Mr. John, these discrepancies, true?
Discrepancies.
Discrepancies. Mr. John, these discrepancies could result in delays in customs clearance or even potential penalties for non-compliance. It is imperative that you address these issues promptly to avoid any further complications.
Understood, Ms. Thompson. I'll work closely with our client to correct these errors immediately and ensure that all documentation is accurate and compliant with regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Please expedite the revisions and inform me once everything is in order. We aim to facilitate a smooth customs clearance while maintaining strict adherence to regulatory requirements.
Absolutely, Ms. Thompson. I'll prioritize this and keep you updated on our progress.
All right, tough.
Again,
right?
teacher, please, the word.
Discrepancies?
Discrepancies.
Yes.
Discrepancies.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a very good example on how you deal with customs authorities. like in their name, it's their authority, and they don't like to keep your documents waiting. If you don't comply with the requirements, they will just put you back in the end of the line or even worse. Okay, so just make sure that you hire freight forwarder and a customs agents that are very experienced. Okay, so for our class interaction, we're just gonna bring it to you just quickly what we would like you to bring for next class. So Ivan is gonna be with us in the beginning of the next class on Thursday. So what I would like you to do is to write a couple of questions regarding challenges of international transportation in the American and European markets, and make sure that you think of things like technologies used in transportation, points of attention in this business, because he owns a freight company. He also drives sometimes when he has to. So infrastructure issues between Europe and the United States, the lifestyle of truck drivers as well, international and domestic freights, and border patrol inspections and procedures. Okay, so these are just a few hints for you. You can make more questions, but maybe at least 2 each. And let's hope that our other students will also be with us next class, so we can have this opportunity to talk live with a professional within international transportation business. Okay.
I think it's important for them to know, Mauricio, that Ivan or Ivan is going to be talking to us directly from Belarus, because coincidentally he's traveled to his home country, and so it's yeah, and
Yes.
and so it's important to keep in mind, people, that the time zone in Belarus is like 6 hours later than here, right, Mauricio?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
he is being very, very nice with us, because it's going to be like 1:30 a.m.
Wow.
when he talks to us. So people, we want to take the opportunity, of course, but let's not keep the guy awake for too long, because
Yes.
Okay.
by the time we finish, it's going to be like 2 o'clock in the morning for him.
Yeah,
That's correct.
okay.
That's correct. But I know him. I work with him in United States for about 6 months, and he is just a very experienced guy. And because he's not American, he's kind of like the Eastern European culture, which is kind of like the Brazilian, the South American. So just be creative with your questions, and you might get very interesting answers from him, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're wrapping up here today. I hope you guys have a great overview on the customs and tariffs, and we are very happy to have a special guest in the next class, and I hope everyone could participate on that, okay?
Teacher, thank you for helping me tonight.
All-
Discrepancies.
Yeah, very good.
Discrepancies.
Yes, yeah. This is why I always tell you to exercise by yourself at work, okay? So sometimes you know the word, but they sound strange. You're like, I know
Yes.
this word, but I never heard anybody saying like that. Okay? So whenever you are exercising your mind, you also create this curiosity of looking for different words and pronunciations, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Laura, was everything clear? Because you had a couple of questions during the class that you wrote in the chat box. Was everything clear?
Yes,
Yep.
everything is clear. Yes.
Okay,
I
great.
was interested to know about the lifestyle of the drive truckers.
The truck
Yeah,
drivers.
that's going to be a
Yes.
nice. Maybe you
How
could think of a
long
question like that,
they
you know,
stay
for
there.
Ivan.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the truck drivers, for example, like in the at the dry ports, okay, we had like because I was responsible for the logistics for the whole area. So I remember like whenever we had vacation time like this, they travel with their kids. So we had to hire like these things for kids to play, and we had to hire people to pay attention to the kids so they will not get killed by the trucks. And I remember whenever we had Christmas and New Year's, and we prepared like parties for them. It's a very interesting area, and I'm so thankful that I had the chance to participate in this ecosystem. But Ivan will give you more details of the life of a truck driver in the United States, which
Yes.
it's different but very interesting as well. Okay.
This is my question, okay, Bruna? Let
I
you
call
know
it.
me.
Okay.
I call it.
Don't worry. I'll think about some other one.
Okay, okay,
Yes, be
Bruno.
creative, okay?
Okay.
He's very nice guy. He's English, despite of him being from Belarus. He lives in the United States for like 20 years. So I mean, his English is very good, and he's very uh, um, uh, talkative, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
One more
bye-bye,
down.
people.
Thank you
Have
very
a good
much.
nice
Bye.
rest and a good
Thank
day
you.
tomorrow.
See you.
See you. Bye.
We'll
Have a
see
good
you on Thursday.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.